Hassan did it for me.
Good. CPing makes everything better.
Okay, this is odd. It let me promote Kim, but I've now, Hassan did it for me.
Hello, there's Janet. CPing makes everything better.
Sorry, it was an echo of our,
Of all the things to echo.
yeah.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Janet. Uh,
Here I am. I've been sitting here all day.
Hey, Janet.
Let me do this. All right, there we go.
Well, while we're waiting, I'm gonna email Hassan, thank you. Because I know he was heading out and I was a little late.
I used your email for the first time. I usually go to the town thing and click.
Oh yeah, I actually pull it straight from the Zoom setup
Yeah,
for you guys, because I found that that's easier for,
once you've got everybody's addresses in and stuff.
yeah. Okay.
Who are we going to be missing?
We're gonna be missing Jane is the only one. So I don't know if people want to reach out to either David or Marguerite. I can,
I can text Marguerite.
okay.
It's just now 5, so I mean,
Yeah.
yes, you should get on ahead of time, but you never know.
I saw David at the library yesterday. He signed bills for me. So I did remind him that we had a meeting. So
Yeah.
So it's your countdown, Kim. How many more meetings?
I don't know.
I think it's after today, it's 3.
Oh, no.
To the end of April, right? Or is it to the end of May?
It depends on if Kim wants to, yeah, because the election's in early May. So it's probably it's today, February, March, and April.
Okay. Marguerite says she'll be right there.
Okay.
Do we have anybody who's expressed interest?
Well, they gotta pull, people can express interest. They got to pull the
Yeah.
papers and get
Yeah.
the signatures.
Is
So
it already time to pull papers for that?
think
it's
so.
not, it's not till February.
Okay.
February seems early too. Has
Yeah.
anybody, like, nobody wants to come and watch a meeting or any of that kind of stuff?
No, there was somebody who did hear that there was like, I guess an opening, and I put him in touch with Marguerite, but I don't, we like went over the process of it being like an elected position and then we didn't hear back. So we don't know if that,
Good thing we're not sensitive.
but also it's, it's still, I think it's gonna be different once we announce that there's, an
Yeah, no.
opening, right? We can do that once people can pull papers, so.
Shouldn't we do it earlier than that? I'm just thinking so people could talk to people or observe some
Well,
meetings.
well,
There's
Janet,
still time.
and
Yeah.
I mean, presumably Kim could still change her mind. Like she
That's true.
hasn't not, and I know Kim, you won't, but she hasn't
They'll
not
pay
pulled
you.
paper. It's not until she really doesn't pull papers that
Yeah.
there's an opening. You know what I'm saying? So
But even if somebody expressed interest and Kim changed her mind, which would be lovely, we could say, hang in there for the next opening.
I would
So-
I would talk it up to people. I would let people know that there may be a vacancy on the board, and if they're interested, that they should look for when the time to pull papers is
Okay.
ready.
Janet, what prompted you to run?
Jane. Jane bugged me. But I've always been a library fan,
I know.
You
Okay.
know, and
Marguerite,
I'd been off advisory for a couple of years, and I guess I'd caught my breath.
Marguerite, do you want to reach out to David or should we just get started?
Why don't we get started and I will call him at the same time. How's that?
Okay. Do you want me to mute you like momentarily?
Hang on, I can do that.
Okay. Yeah, Jane, and I'll just apologize, but Jane did tell me that this was a bad time, but all the other times that we were and days we were considering, it was bad for multiple people. And this was the day and time where it was only bad for one. So I did tell Jane, I promise I'll, do my best in the future to accommodate everybody as best I can. But scheduling meetings is very difficult. And Janet and I know this in particular from the community center
Oh my
group
God.
because
Well,
that
community
is,
center is amazing because people don't respond. You'll
yeah,
put out a
there's been
thing, and like 3 weeks later, somebody will say, "Oh, I don't think I can make that date." So I don't
well,
know. I don't know
to
why
be
so
honest,
picky.
Janet, I'm like one of the people he's like told I don't respond to the things, and he's right, I forget to,
Uh,
but I'm not a voting member.
Sorry, do we
Right.
have a quorum without David?
We do.
Yes.
Okay, David, you're off the hook.
Well, that answers that question.
Are we recording already?
Yeah, we're on YouTube
Oh, ew.
because I needed Hassan to do it before he left work, which
Okay.
was at 5 o'clock.
Okay, we can get started and he'll come on as soon as he can.
Okay.
He's got something else going on at home, so there we are.
I don't know though if we could approve the last minutes since I wasn't at that one.
Actually, technically, even though you're not in the meeting, you can vote to approve the minutes.
So, but what are you approving if you weren't there to confirm they were correct? Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
it's on Zoom and it's just a thing. You can
No.
vote to approve minutes even if you didn't attend the meeting. Isn't that
The
weird?
last one wasn't, but
It wasn't on Zoom. Yeah.
I think Margaret, if it's like, I think Marguerite, because she's chair, technically has like I think if the rest of them vote, Kim, it's okay.
Okay.
But
Well,
I'll check
or we
with
can
Kim.
just put them, we can move them to the
We
end
just
of the
move it
meeting.
down
David's
till
on.
later in the meeting. And then
Yeah, that's better.
There's like a weird thing because you guys are an even number that Marguerite has a slightly higher voting power than the
Oh
rest
my
of you, which is
God. No,
weird.
let's just move it to later in the
Yeah.
meeting. How's that? We'll move it to after David gets on.
Yeah, that's fine. There's no reason you can't shuffle it to later if David's
All right.
going to be on.
So, okay, so let's see, director's report, Ryan.
Well, sure. Did we call the meeting to order? Was it
Oh,
time?
duh, here I am. The January 18th meeting of the Southborough Library Board of Trustees is coming to order. It is it came to order, well, right now, 5:07. And currently not in attendance, Jane Davis and David Eckberg. But
There's
David's
nobody
gonna
in the
join.
attendees, so we have Marguerite, Landry, Amy Yazdani, Kim Regan, and Janet Maney
Okay,
on the meeting.
that should work. And we're gonna move the minutes to a later point in the meeting so that we have a quorum to vote on them. All right, director's report, Ryan.
There is a quorum for the record, just for anybody watching.
Yeah, I know we have a quorum, but if Kim doesn't want to vote because she didn't attend the meeting, which is a
Yeah.
perfectly understandable decision, then we'll need a different quorum.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan,
Okay, so you want me to do director's report?
if you're ready, yeah.
Sure. So sorry, it was very narrative this time. So let me just pull it up. Let me start up by asking, did everybody get a chance to read it? Who's here? I know many of you did because some of you got back to me. Does anybody have any questions about it before I go over some of the stuff?
No.
No, okay. So I mean let's start with the water because that obviously is the most frustrating and probably the quickest item that we have. Um, so just to let you know, water is going to be something that's an issue for us, that we have to kind of look at, every time we have heavy rainfall, pretty much, right? So, or at least in the volume and speed that it was in that date in December. So, we did have water in the building. We were able to manage it very quickly. It's nice to know that the water alarm system is working, and did go off. There isn't actually a water alarm in that room where we found the water. So we do think that it was the one that got triggered was in the Eaton room. So there might have been additional water, but just a very small amount that dried up. But
But we didn't get any this past week when everybody's been having trouble?
we did not. I checked.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Karen. Right. Question, is that water coming in from the old lines from long ago? The oil lines from long ago in the front of the building?
we would have to dig up all around the building into the foundation to determine that, Marguerite. The old well line was sealed up
Yeah.
during the I don't know about oil lines. I know there was an old well line that went into
Yeah.
Eaton, where the like frog statue in the front side of the property, that was an old well that
Yeah.
used to be in front of the library. That was still open as of when we had the massive flood in 2018. So that was sealed then. So the water, I believe, didn't come in through there, because that we shouldn't get any water from there. It's not typically where water comes in, is what I can tell you. It's still the lowest part of the building. It's in that kind of area because we're talking Eaton, Teen, and the hallway where the everyday book sale is. Typically, where we're dealing with water is in the hallway where the everyday book sale area is. This was on basically another side of the building. So sort of front, like where the front part of the building is.
Do you think this is
And-
going to impact the grant?
No, it shouldn't.
Okay.
But it might be when we're doing planning and design, we would want to, should that money get approved, I believe it would be prudent of us to look at possible water
Remediation.
investigations
Yeah.
as far as what we can further do from a design perspective on preventing additional water.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
But David's ready to come on.
Good.
So are we good? Are we good on the water?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm looking at the director's report from December, so bear with me. So
Yeah.
that's the one.
This one had desktop machines have been installed.
Yeah, so those, we can talk about that. And it's right on time for David to join the meeting because I know he loves all the computer stuff in the director's report lately. So basically, we worked with IT to replace our desktop units, which were kind of towards the end of life. We're able to get a little bit more juice out of them, but the staff, and especially some of our newer staff, were getting very frustrated with how slow the computers were, for the desktop circulation. So oddly enough, one of them, the better of the two, is still in service because while IT was coming to do this, the children's room computer, which had been repaired a number of times, completely died, and they couldn't get that one back. So we ended up taking the most functioning upstairs computer, and it is now the downstairs children's circulation computer. So it's a little bit of a musical computers here as far as that one goes. Because we also took one of like a catalog machine and put it downstairs too. So you can kind of see where the long-term computer planning is going with this. It means that it used to be when we flooded that the children's room got the newest computers. at this point, the children's room now has the oldest machines in the building, with the exception of the public PCs. The public PCs are functioning correctly. I would also tell you, I think the children's room staff is somewhat frustrated, especially our part-timers, with the slowness. They always call it the slowness, but it's like a lag in memory capacity is really what we're dealing with the downstairs computers. So Jay and Hassan are aware of this. Jason Montiel and Hassan Hammond from IT. The next plan is to replace the circulation computer downstairs and also to look at Kim's office. Those are the two next computers I think we'd like to replace. The upstairs ones are now, I can tell you, after a lot of troubleshooting on installing the printing software, they are working. That only took really a day, but it was a long day for me, Hassan, and Jason. I'm trying to work with CW Mars because they thought it was an issue with our firewall or our antivirus program. And I think what happened was they just didn't know how to install the program on the configuration setup we had, which was odd because Jay really tried to make sure the configuration on these computers was the same as it was on the prior builds. It was just on a newer version of Windows. So we tried to make things easy for CW Mars, and then I feel like CW Mars is going to make things a little complicated. So we were able to troubleshoot that. It's a big dance because there's me on the library side trying to get IT and CW Mars in the room talking, and we tried to do it over a chat interface that CW Mars likes. We eventually called them, and I feel like we resolved a lot of the troubleshooting that needed to happen. It was much easier to do it on the second machine, the second day. I think it was like day 3 because it took us 2 days with the first one. So I know I'm talking a lot about the computers. The only thing we haven't resolved on the upstairs PCs, just to let you know, is that a new fun thing about Microsoft 365 is that usually you have an individual person log in, and then that registers the Office suite. So it's like when I'm using it, it's like the Ryan Donovan Microsoft Word license, right? Well, we set up the circulation computers so they have generic logins so that because multiple users use them throughout the day. There used to be a product key that we could use on the older version of the Microsoft products. The Office and Excel are the two ones we primarily use. The issue now is that those product keys from the old ones aren't working. Hassan had some product keys that should be working to enter into the new ones, and they are not. So he is trying to resolve that issue with Microsoft. So we've done a workaround with this. We're using a lot of Google products, but like it's interesting to learn, right, when something stops working, how much you use it, right? So like an interesting thing is we print out address for bills for people who don't return library books through Microsoft Word. So we're now going to have to just do another workaround, which is when Kathy Kalenda does that work she usually does it Tuesday nights. She's just going to have to print the envelopes from a different computer. So that's kind of the solution right now until we can resolve that. Hassan is actively working on the problem. We're hoping that we have some sort of resolution next week. But I also thought these computers were going to be installed last July or August, and then they got installed in January of the following year. So that just gives you, this might go on a while since we can't immediately figure it out. But this is like fun stuff that I do, guys, that I'm just bringing you along for the ride, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
Are you on the director's report, Ryan?
Yeah.
I'm
Okay,
still
yeah, I'm
there.
sorry I was late.
So tell me
and
about Michael Whidden and the geocache.
yeah, so that was actually left over from the last director's report. I don't know that we discussed it though. So that just is a pending item. We're going to do that in the spring once we're clear of the weather. But I don't know if you're familiar with geocaching. It's kind of like a fancy adult scavenger hunt.
It's not just for adults.
Sorry.
All the scouts do it.
Okay. So Amy is a little bit more up on this than I am. I'm learning about it. There are other libraries that do this. So Michael is an enthusiast. He's a geocacher and he wants to work with us to try to set something up. So we were also, just because it's going to be placed in the grounds, we were going to try to talk with somebody from DPW just to make them aware of it. But I don't think it's going to be, it's very little overhead for us. It will draw people to the library. So I think that's kind of a win. And you know, again, I'm willing to try anything. I think if it's a good community project, and this seems like it has the potential to be one.
I think it's great that the library would be a spot with fun.
Agree.
We do a similar thing with a resident on letterboxing, which is more of an indoor version of this. That's more I think esoteric. I think geocaching casts a wider net. And then I like the idea of doing it outdoors. I think Michael has done it both places, outdoors and indoors. But if it's outdoors, it's something people can access all the time. So that was kind of a factor in me wanting it to be an outdoor project. And also we have 2 letterbox things inside the library. So it's just we have limited space. So,
Sounds like fun though, doesn't it?
yeah.
All right, the community center exploration MBLC construction.
Yeah, so I don't know if Janet wants to speak to any points. I'm gonna quickly blow my nose while you're talking, Janet, just because I'm very stuffy today. So
You
I'm
have our
sorry.
permission,
But
Ryan. It's
I'm
okay.
I'm willing to come back. There's the report does outline kind of, you know, we need to have a discussion, and that we've been asked a couple times by Jason where you guys are at. So I think I need to kind of be quiet for a little while, which after the computer talk, that's probably a blessing, right? So I don't know if you want to present it, Janet, and the rest of the board can talk, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Sure. But the good news is we're wrapping up the Community Center Exploration Committee is wrapping up its work. We're going to do a presentation to the Board of Selectmen, I guess the beginning of February. I'm not sure if that date's finalized. Because we're really at a standstill. We can't go any further until they decide on the future of NERI and how many grades it's going to have and whether Finn is actually available and whatever. That's where we have gotten to, that all the different groups involved thinks that moving into Finn would be a good alternative. And for us, it would be a backup if we can't get approval to expand the library. And in any case, it would be a potential temporary location for us during construction. So that's where we are in general, but there's like some details that Jason's trying to fill in, some questions that have come up. And one thing that we actually didn't discuss is I think there's 2 parts to this, Brian, if I don't have this wrong. If we're going to go this spring and ask for the design money. It's already been approved by the capital committee, the 150,000. So there's a question that's come up as to whether or not, if we don't get accepted into the program, would we still go ahead and start designing a library edition?
In other words, spend the 150,000.
Well, spend 150,000 and then potentially go in front of the town and ask for money for the whole project without support from the state. And I think Ryan's talked to the state and talked to some other people who've gone through the process. And most people make any proposals they make to their towns contingent on getting accepted by the state program. And I think that's what we would want to do first, but that's what we should talk about. I think my personal feeling is certainly on the first round, you would make it contingent on that. And then depending on community support, you know, if it doesn't pass that way, I don't know that you'd come back ever and ask the town to approve it without the state support. So
So to give you some background,
Yeah.
Belmont, if you follow their project, is doing a new library or renovated library completely without any state support at all. So that was because the time frame and the need for the library there, they really felt like they couldn't wait. They were having to close the library because of issues in their mechanical room. They have had similar issues with us, not flooding, but with water in parts of the building, which have required, a lot of infrastructure issues long term. So the project was very, I don't want to say controversial, but it was very contentious in their community because I think of the cost, of the projected costs. So part of the reason that we've spent so much time, I think, on construction is because um of this grant cycle being open and us wanting to take advantage of that opportunity this year. I would just say, to me, I feel like it's incentivized. We're going to get so much money for a new library were we to follow this grant process and get into the MCLCP. I think I finally have the initials. So um, that to me is why to do it this year. There will be another grant round, I believe, in the next 4 years if we don't get into this year. And that is like pretty much a guarantee at this point because of them no longer doing wait lists for libraries because they just want to basically do a grant round, accept 10 libraries, then open up a new grant round once they're ready to go. So that's a very different process than what we've been waiting for 10 years. And I know, like, Kim's been on the board a while and Marguerite has been on the board for a while. And they remember us talking about construction even before, the rest of you were
That's
on the
right.
board, right? So I just, that's why I put my recommendation in the director's report. But again, I'm going to be quiet now. I just wanted to let you know kind of where my background was. And then the majority of communities that are putting this forward are making the warrant article have language that say it's contingent
Contingent on,
on award of the planning and design money
right.
I'm sorry, the planning and design money is
Contingent on the
award is contingent on being accepted into the MCLCP program.
To me anyway, that makes a lot of sense. What does everybody else think?
I
So
would
I
say
guess,
I would say a resounding yes, that we should go forward. Uh, I would be surprised if any of us did not want to go forward on this.
But contingent on getting accepted by the program.
Yes,
Right.
That's
yes.
okay.
so I guess could someone spell out more if we make it contingent on being accepted into the program, what that means for us?
It means that usually to get the 150 thou, it's probably going to have to be bonded a loan, and that probably simply that would not move forward if the MBLC said no.
I think I understand your question, Kim, which is what happens if we don't get accepted into the program? Like,
Right.
let's say this article is approved and then we don't get accepted into the program, right? Let me do some scenarios.
But then we'd have the planning design and we don't get accepted.
Then
Well,
we don't have the
but if
planning
you
design.
say
So
if you say that you want the planning and design money from town meeting contingent upon the MBLC or whatever it is giving us the money to move forward with the building. But if they don't give us the money to move forward with the building this year, then the 150,000 is off the table. The town doesn't borrow it, and we're just back at zero.
yeah.
Okay,
So
wait,
so as of July, that's when the money would get dispersed, Kim. So then we wouldn't really start the process until then anyway, because we don't know if we're going to be in the grant program until around that time. It won't be
Right.
until the summer. So then if we're not one of the 10 libraries that get into it, the money goes back to the town.
Right.
That
So
was
Janet,
awarded.
you're the advisory person. What do you think?
well, I guess I have a clarifying question. If So we don't need to do any planning and design to apply for the money.
No,
So we're not applying for specific dollar amount.
no.
No,
Okay.
we need the town to say, here's 150,000 to do the planning and design. That's all
Right.
that we need.
Yeah,
But we
so
don't-
the, so,
but the application itself doesn't require us to have a plan in place. Okay, so that would be if we apply for the 150,000 design money, make it contingent on getting accepted, then there's two different things that could happen. Well, a number of things. We could get turned down by the town, but supposedly they say yes. Then if we get accepted into the program, then we go ahead and expend the $150,000, most of which would be reimbursed later, um, to design what we actually want for the addition. If we don't get accepted, we're back to square one. And I think we'd want to be, because
Yeah.
if we don't get accepted, then we have two routes. One would be try again the next year, and one would be maybe look into the Finn thing and see if we'd want to do a portion there instead. I suppose it depends on how likely it is, would we be waiting 4 years for another try at the state fund? I mean, in that case, I think we should do something in between that utilizes part of Finn. So I think we want to go back to square one if we get turned down.
I agree, and as I understand it, I think it will be easier to get a town meeting to okay $150,000. Obviously, if they understand that if the state isn't gonna fund it in this cycle, then the $150,000 will never get spent, and we don't even have it, and we go back to start all over again.
Yep.
I think that makes more sense, because to me, it seems like a slam dunk if you've got that qualification in there. I mean, what do you think, Jen? It looks to me like.
Yeah. I mean, I
what's
think
not
we
to
would want to go ahead with something, but not the same thing. We would
Yes,
want a
not-
chance to
not right
rethink
Yeah.
and replan.
Yeah,
Janet, why is there a 4-year gap?
That's what Ryan mentioned is the next
it's the funding
round.
cycle.
That's
They're
when
gonna-
they're, that's
gonna
when they're
pull up-
in.
Yeah.
So basically, David, kind of the way this works is because this is part of a state disbursement of funding, right? And so money has to be allocated from the state level in order to go into the construction bucket. So the idea is if they do 10 libraries, that they'll have money to do this again in like 4 years.
I suppose that could change, but that's what the reading is as of now.
Right. So anybody else have any thoughts? I mean, to me, it seems to make perfect sense to put the contingency in there. I mean, I can't see it not passing with that.
That should be a no-brainer for town meeting.
Yeah.
With the contingency.
Well, yes, we hope so.
Also, I was asked this at the Capital Committee meeting that we attended. Marguerite, I think Marguerite and I were there. And then also again, when Janet and I were at the community center meeting, and I couldn't remember in the revised program how this worked. So gotta follow me here. But the 150 is what we have to put in the warrant article as what we're asking for the town. But once we get accepted into the program, there's a reimbursement that comes as part of that for planning and design. So it is 50% up to $100,000. So it's not $100,000.
It's 75,000,
yeah.
right?
So it means if you spend, right, 150,000 on planning and design, you'll get 75 of that back. They don't go over 100,000. So the way that that's phrased is because some libraries that have specific needs that need to go over 150,000 can go up to like 200,000 and still have 100,000 kicked in, but they won't reimburse you more than 100,000. Did that make sense? Because Andrea had to go over this with me like a couple times, the way it was phrased. So see, I tried to make it simplistic so that I
Right.
could break
So,
it down.
so max any town is going to get is 100,000
Yeah.
back of the 150. Amy, what do you think? And Kim, what do you think?
It makes sense. I don't have it. Yeah, I think the way we're going, the way it's been discussed. That's why I haven't said anything.
No
Yeah,
objection.
I agree. I think doing it with the contingency that obviously if we don't get into the program, we don't have that
Right,
money to
right.
do that.
We're not going to go ahead and
But I
spend
guess what I was a little confused about, so in the director's report, Ryan, you said Mr. Malinowski asked if we would move forward with the project if we were not awarded the funds.
Not
It-
award the
something,
state grant, not the design funds. That's the two different pots.
sorry, say that again,
Can I say
Janet?
that again? Yeah. So there's two different steps. One is we're asking for the design funds, and we
Mhm.
want to make it contingent on getting accepted into the
From
program.
asking from the town, right? Yeah.
Right. And then the second pot is if we get accepted into the program, then there's a whole bunch of other money that would come based on what we come up with for design.
Right, like what the state would kick in and
Right.
also the town will have to kick in too.
That would be a whole nother town meeting,
Right.
whole nother discussion. There'd be a ton of discussion before then because we have to figure out what we want in the addition, how much we want to spend.
So Ryan, with Belmont, what was the contentiousness about that? I know Bolton did the same thing. They didn't take any state money at all to build their addition. They did a separate fundraising arm, and I don't even think they had to do take the lowest proposal. I think they just, maybe they did, but I seem to think they didn't. But they just did it by fundraising, and they built the whole addition without the state. I wonder what kind of flack Belmont Library received about moving forward without using the state.
Well,
Just
their library is sort of equivalent to our size, the current site.
hmm,
It's probably in more disrepair than we are, only
hmm,
because we've had such a good facilities and DPW team pay attention, right?
yeah, yeah,
And obviously I've made a big investment in the building and trying to bring it up to ADA standards, to everything we could do with the
yeah.
existing site. The cost, I think, was a big part of it. I know not everybody in Belmont used the library. It is, I should note, not everybody in Southborough uses our library. We have pretty good usage rates, but not everyone, right? So, I will say sometimes directors and boards of trustees want to initiate a project and then do not want to stop the momentum of that when there's a need, and then cannot follow the state grant cycle in order to do that, or choose not to follow it. So
Well, were they
that's
under the
kind of
old cycle anyway? Were they under the old program?
they didn't participate in the program at all. I think that they had applied, Janet, to previous planning and design cycles, and I don't know if they applied to construction. I don't know the full history, but I do think they had been denied at least once that I'm aware of. So I mean, this is kind of, I think Kim is bringing up a good question, because I think this is kind of what Mr. Malinowski was kind of intimating on his line of questioning, was if this all fails, like let's say we ask for planning and design money, that passes, and then we don't get into the program, will we be back before the next construction grant cycle trying to do a renovated library?
To
I
do
think
a
that's his
Bolton. Yeah,
question.
yeah.
It wasn't how he was phrasing it, but I'm kind of seeing like, are we going to continue going with the momentum to do a revised? I think that's what he wants from you, as far as a discussion. Like, are we going to just barrel through, basically? Like, are we going to capitalize on the information and momentum? And I have to go with what my recommendation is, which is the reason we're having these discussions, the reason why we're moving forward with this now, is because the program grant money is available for construction. I feel like the cost is, like, if you're looking at Marlboro and they had a $21 million library and they got over $10 million from the state, that to me is a big incentive on why to do it.
Mhm.
I think if you had asked everybody in Marlboro to pony up the entire 21 million and not the 11 million that they had to do, that's a big difference.
Okay, so Mr. Malinowski's question is, we get through the planning design, we spend the 150, we have the plans. And so those plans are obviously good for current day, because as we know, construction continues to go up. So his question is, once we have those plans, and if we do not get into the construction phase, do we plan on going to the town for the full cost of the library?
But that assumes that we're leaving out that contingency.
Yeah, if we make it contingent, like we're talking about, this
Right.
kind of answers the question for him, because it means that we won't do planning and design if we don't get accepted into the program. I think he wants to know, are we just going to do this outside of the program? I think that's the question.
Okay, so I guess my question is, when do you get accepted into the program? Like, well,
Well, town meeting will be March 23rd, and that'll go up or down, and then I think it's June.
We
That,
find out in the summer, and
yeah,
probably the early part of the summer, Kim, on whether or not we're one of the libraries. It might be sooner. They're gonna do independent review, and it really depends on. I'm sorry, there's so many things I can't answer about this. I do ask all the same questions that everyone's asking, but it's gonna depend on how many applications they get, and then on the amount of money that they're gonna look at dispersing, and then also like what is the result of the independent reviews of everybody's, because it might be that they get, there were 35 libraries that did letter of intent, right? So let's just do that. Let's say half of those put in applications. It's possible that some of those applications won't be complete, or maybe lacking something that is integral that fails the independent review process. So that means those libraries are out. They're not going to be accepted into the program. That's why the application is important to get it right when we do it. And that's part of the reason I've been in such constant communication with the MBLC construction specialists.
I do think it's odd that they would make a decision without knowing how much they're being asked to kick in. I mean, but they're not. They're not asking for the total cost.
no.
They just want to know, well, I mean, it's a fairly exhaustive application process. But I'm surprised that they would accept these things without knowing the cost, but I guess
They are, and I know Kim wanted to say something, but they are prioritizing smaller libraries with communities under 2,500 in this cycle. In
2,500?
particular,
Yeah.
Janet, because they want to make sure that smaller libraries, which don't end up having as big a cost
Yeah.
like if you're doubling a tiny library,
Right.
it might be a great library, but it's still going to be relatively tiny.
10
right?
little libraries is cheaper. Yeah.
That's kind of where they're at. So they're
Okay.
kind of based on the population size, because there are formulas on population per square foot, on what the parking formula should be. So they are basing it. It's kind of what we were talking about in the community center group, because they want to do cost estimates for what adding square footage and what
Right.
potential rent. So it's the same basic formula. They know that the costs are going to fluctuate a little bit based on what the esoteric needs are of each community, but they kind of have a ballpark based on who's applying and how big the community is.
And the square
already.
footage cost for construction, yeah.
Roughly, yeah. The other part of it is I think there may be a concern that very small libraries are not well supported and may close, which is something to think about.
so sorry, I guess my question is, if we apply for this, we go to town meeting, ask for the 150, contingent on us getting into the program, we get the 150, does that mean that, like, is that the point where they tell us whether we are in their program or not based on however many other libraries they have?
So we apply in May. We have to have an application into them by May. So there's a couple of things. The application needs to be complete. there needs to be a 30-year service plan for for library services. So I have to plan out, that's the fun part of the next couple months, everyone. I have to plan out a projection of library services for the next 30 years. I am recruiting Kim and Mariana to help me with this for the respective youth services, because that's a big part of what we do, especially with programming and collections, and I want their input on it. And obviously Carol and Leah will help a little bit with adult collections, but that's primarily my responsibility, right? So it's going to be a team effort is what I'm saying with the service plan. And then there's some additional things we have to calc for the application. So I will say this, Kim, even if you cycle off the board, I would appreciate if you might be a grant proofreader, an application proofreader, because I'm going to need people to look at this and give me feedback on whether or not it's making sense, on whether or not I'm way out of left field. It'll be everybody, I think, who's on this group. And in the attendees, we have Mr. Stivers, who I think I would also maybe recruit as a proofreader. So if we get it approved, I'm kind of going through a scenario. So if we get
Yeah,
the
let's go through the
150
timeline.
approved, 150 approved, grant application is completed. It goes in May 31st, I think it's the 30th or the 31st. I think it's 31st for May, for the application deadline. That it's whatever the last day of May is. Then we find out by the summer whether or not our application was accepted. It matters if we did the letter of intent, which we did, because they're not looking at anybody that didn't do that. And it matters if the 150 passed, because there's going to be people who want to apply. And then some of the town meetings are not until May or June. So it's actually better. Like our timing for the town meeting is better, because if we don't get the 150 approved, I mean, we can reevaluate this in April on whether or not we try to go for a special town meeting and we ask again, we'll have time. Or if we don't apply, that's going to be the question. But I would just say we talked with Capital. We're going to talk with advisory at the end of this month. The select board, when we went for the letter of intent, was very supportive of this. And this isn't coming out of left field for the community. I think everybody knows that we're looking to improve, especially with the flooding that happened. I think that was very apparent in the survey results. People do not want that happening anymore. And there are things people want from the library that we would need to do construction to achieve.
So Ryan, here's my question for you. Assuming that the 150,000 is passed by town meeting, how soon do you think the RFPs should go out for planning and design firms to do that? And do you have some firms in mind?
Well, so it goes out to bid, Marguerite. So there's we'll do an RFQ. Because obviously we have particular needs for the historic preservation piece and the use of the CPA money. And we also want somebody to look at the deed because of the legal opinion we received on staying on the site, right? Which I think is a very small part of it. But we'll what will happen is the money still gets dispersed July 1st. Because it's a town meeting decision, right? So the first step is doing an RFQ for a operating project manager. So this is similar to what happened with the CPA project. What we have to do is go out to bid on an OPM. Then once we have the OPM selected, right, then we go into design selection. So hopefully this will happen pretty quick, but we'll get the OPM in place. We then go out to bid on an architect, and then we go from there.
Okay, so my thought is, once the 150,000 is okayed by town meeting, knock wood, is that a good time to start preparing the RFQ and not waiting until after we find out whether we're going to get it or not? Because that's not that long of a document to
The
prepare.
goal is to finish the application.
Yep.
That's going to be the priority.
Okay,
So then we'll look at an RFQ after the application submission. We'll have that ready in June. So June will really be, and the RFQ specifically is for the project manager,
Yep.
because once we hire the project manager, they manage the project.
Right.
That's the joy.
Well, it's
So
similar to the facade, right?
yes.
Yeah, so we've been through it, we've got it down. Okay, just saying we could probably hit the ground running a little
Now,
fast.
now, are you saying I believe there might be interest from the project manager, from the CPA project and from the architect firm, who did the CPA project for us on rebidding on these projects, because they did know that when construction money from the state became available, that we were going to apply, but they have to go through a bid process in
Right.
order to do it. And then I will be part of the review team for, I believe, both. And then we may have a trustee representative. So it may be you, Marguerite, it may be David, it may be Janet. I don't think we have more than one trustee do this, right? Because there's also going to be people from the town who are involved. Probably Melanie, I believe, and it's probably somebody else. So then what we do is Richard did this during the Richard Wallace,
Yep,
the former
during the
chair. He was the one who
design, yeah.
reviewed all the CPA project manager stuff, and then
Right.
he also sat in on the design. We didn't need to go to bid for the project manager for CPA because the price threshold didn't
Yeah.
exceed
Yep.
10,000. So it was within that. Then we had to when we went to design because the project became so big.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
So
I'm
Ryan, can we,
okay with that, with the language. Go ahead. Kim,
so
go
can we
ahead.
just keep going with that timeline? So we get an OPM, we get the architect, we get the plan. So at the end of that, then where are we? So we have our plans
Well,
and
we start doing the planning and design. So that is, a lot of things will happen. We start identifying, I believe the architect starts doing community engagement. So we'll probably have meetings at the library where they do a lot of some of the preliminary work I've done. I don't know if we're going to do surveys, but they will do like nights at the library where we get community input. We start doing like
And
environmental testing.
this is
Yeah.
after the state has given us the green light on
Yeah.
state money. Yeah.
And then eventually we will have, I don't know if this depends on the architect. And so the OPM and the architect are really going to drive a lot of this process. But what typically happens is I think we'll end up forming a building committee for the library, right? Which again, there'll be trustee representation. We'll probably want somebody from the Friends. We'll probably want a variety of different people involved in that effort. Then they kind of like work with the architect, with the project manager on refining things so that we eventually have plans for what the library will look like.
And a cost.
Then and cost finally, which is what everybody really wants here. So we'll have the costs that are associated with that. There may be multiple options. That's typically what happens in sort of a design process. So they may go, like Janet and I are looking at this with DRA, looking at Finn, right? So they have kind of a low impact, low cost, medium cost, medium impact, high impact, high cost, right?
It's the
So it
same
may
thing with the
be,
potential NERI.
yeah. So there's a couple of things we want to hit. Now, to me, I think we've kind of heard a little bit about what people wanted in the survey. And what I'm finding is that people don't want a monolithic, Andrea kept saying the word cathedral is used a lot, a library cathedral, right? People don't want a gigantic structure. But there is space that we want to add specifically for collections. And there are things like a local history room I think we need. And then obviously the youth services areas, especially like a programming area for children and possibly for teen are kind of the big initial things I think we want this team to look at and then find ways to integrate into
And that
it.
it should be consonant with the building that is with the oldest part of
I
it.
don't know if other things will come out as we do more community engagement, Kim, but it is possible. So I just want to, I just know where I took a pulse with the survey, right? And we did, I think, get some crucial feedback on where to start.
Yeah.
Okay. So once we have the plans, the options, and you've identified whatever option we would like to go with, is that the point where we figure out, how much is the town's obligation versus the state?
Yeah, what's it gonna
Yeah.
cost, right?
Yeah, so then when we start working, because we'll continue to be in communication with the construction specialists on the state side. And then once we get approval at our town meeting of what the costs are going to be, we start getting a better sense of what the reimbursement back from the state is going to be. So I don't, this is all part of a revised edition of the grant. So once we get closer to the construction process, I'll have a clearer understanding of where the reimbursement comes into play. But I believe we do need to have some sort of final cost, final design on the table before that number materializes.
Now, as I understood it, one of the things that happened with Westboro is that because their design was the way it was and the state had okayed it, they were unable to make it smaller, to make it cheaper after that. It was kind of locked in. Am I
They
right?
got waitlisted.
Yeah.
So this was part of the old program. So
Yeah.
once they got everything approved, they
Yeah.
ended up on a wait list for several years. And then they had to go back to their town meeting to
Mhm.
say, remember years ago when you were in favor and you wanted to
Right.
approve all of this stuff? Well, here's how much it's going to cost. And construction costs have tripled.
But they weren't able to say, okay, we'll cut 2 rooms off of it and it'll be cheaper.
Yeah, once they had the design piece approved,
Yeah.
that was what the state agreed to reimburse.
So
And then
same
I
would be
think,
true for us,
and
right?
then the reimbursement rate, Kim, was also locked in at that point. So they weren't reimbursing them more because that was the way the old program worked. This is an effort to correct that. Like Westboro was kind of a cautionary tale also for the state. This wasn't the only library that failed, and especially because of cost issues.
Yeah, they got stuck in a bad situation. So I guess what the question, I'm trying to understand where Mr. Malinowski's question comes in. Is his question at the beginning of this that if we don't get the 150 approved by the town, will we still move forward? Or is his question like, depending on what the reimbursement is? Like, I guess I'm
No,
trying
I
to
think
make sure we
he's
answer.
probably trying to word the warrant article.
Yeah, as I understood it, he didn't have the idea of putting the contingency part in there. He was saying, if you get $150,000 from the town, are you gonna move forward with planning and design, whether or not, and then you have the planning and the design, but I think the contingency thing maybe,
Yeah, I think the question is, are we going to do a project no matter what? So
Yeah.
are we going to do a project without state funding assistance? And I mean, to me, I'm not the deciding, I'm not a decision maker as much as I'm talking here, you all are. So my answer would be no, but that's really up to all of you.
So that's what he wants to hear from us now. So, I mean, in my opinion, if town meeting does not vote for the 150 for us to do planning and design, I don't see that there's any immediate way we could move forward at all. Because if there's no appetite for us to do the planning and design portion of it, there's going to be no appetite to fully fund, a library construction project on our own.
Yeah, if we put a contingency saying we're not going to spend the money unless we get it into the state program, and the town still doesn't approve it, then there really is very little appetite in the town
Right.
for
The message would
spending
be
money
clear,
on the
right?
library.
And the other part,
And I'm sorry, Marguerite. The only thing I'll say is the Shrewsbury went to their town meeting. I think they got it approved on the fourth time.
Oh my
So
word.
there is
The
value
planning and design
sometimes.
money?
I think it was the construction. I think there
Okay.
was more contention on the construction. Planning and design typically passes. It's very
Yeah.
rare that it doesn't. So
Right.
that again, I know Marguerite has been, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you are cautiously looking at planning and design and hoping that this next step goes through a town meeting. I'm less concerned about this. I'm concerned about when we go for I'm concerned about getting the application done
For the
first. Then I'm
construction.
concerned about the construction.
Yeah.
So to me, the construction is more the question mark, and that's more the thing that we have to focus on. I think Jason really just wants to, because Jason's wearing a couple hats. He's working with Janet and I on what to do with Finn, maybe long term, and other town facilities, but he's also looking at capital projects in his role as capital committee altogether. And again, we're spending a lot of time talking about Jason. We should have just invited him, I think. But
But here's the other part of it. The elephant in the room for this is Neary. If they build a new Neary, it's going to be the most expensive thing Southborough has ever done. And I think residents might think, well, we can't do two things.
Yeah, at our last meeting, we kind of walked it
Marguerite,
out. There will be a couple of year gap in between
Yeah.
our going for money and them approving Neary. But yeah, it's
it's
close
an
enough.
easier pill to swallow, sorry for the metaphor, if we're getting half of the project paid for
Right.
in a reimbursement. I think for everybody, including for everybody who would vote for this.
Well, it used to be that the school was reimbursed if you built a school, like if Woodward, they built, the state reimbursed a lot on that, but now the state's only reimbursing 20% on a school.
Oh, well, that's not very much.
Yep, the libraries are getting a higher, more generous amount, I think, and the schools are getting much less. So that's
Well,
kind of, speaking of pills to swallow.
a good library is a good deal.
Yeah.
So even if we do go through the planning and design, we get the plans and say at the time, the cost of construction butts up with whatever's happening with Neary and it doesn't go through. From what it sounds like with a lot of other towns, you kind of hold on to your plans and kind of wait for, the right time for that to go through.
Yeah, I think we have
Well-
one additional time we can ask if it fails, so we can go again. And then after that, I think we have to,
Give it
we
up.
may have to start over.
Yeah, and
Well, the other
inflation of-
complicating thing is that if
Yeah.
Neary doesn't go through, then Finn needs to stay in place.
Yeah.
And everybody is short on things. They might want to go ahead with library just to get that off the table.
Yeah,
Well, again, out of the cost of all of these things, the library is you're gonna get the bigger bang for your buck.
of the
Right, we
state.
might
We're
start
gonna be-
looking better and better.
Yeah, we're gonna be, and we discovered I mean, again, you hear me, I'm doing my sales pitch already. I'm getting ready for town meeting. So, but we'll be able to achieve the library construction that we want to do. And again, we have to look at another site. I have to do that as part of the application. But again, if we focus on our existing site, which we got feedback on, we already know that our facility can't be used for another purpose based on how the deed was set up. So right there, I think that, in that reshuffling they were talking about of town facilities, there's nothing that can be done at the library site that is in the library. Why wouldn't we make a good investment there?
Okay,
You need a vote on this, Marguerite?
There's nothing-
well, let's do it anyway, just so that we've
I
done it.
would,
All
Marguerite.
right,
Yeah.
I'll move that the library board is to I move to say
Can I
that
help?
move
Can I
that
help?
For you to say.
the library board is in support of moving forward with going to the town meeting on March of 2024, asking the town for $150,000 for planning and design grant, and including language to say that it is contingent upon acceptance into the state's MPLCP plan, which we better write out as words because no one's going to know what that stands for.
The Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program,
Thank you.
I
which I
second.
was saying the acronym wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, Amy seconded, sorry.
We're in.
Okay, Amy's got a second. All right, Landry, aye.
Yes,
Dana,
Donna,
aye.
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 Regan, I.
Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. All right, phew, that was a
Wow.
naughty situation, but it looks, Ryan, thank you for all the work you're doing in this. It looks really Herculean, and
He's doing great backup work and calling people and making sure he's got a good handle on
yep,
Well,
yep,
to be blunt, trying to understand how the state is setting this up is as complicated as actually writing the stuff out. And I had met with Kim Regan, already, and then Kim provided a great outline on like elements we
yep,
should put up on our website.
yep,
So the staff has been working on this. We were gonna have something up prior to this meeting, and really the snow messed us up this week. So I apologize. Again, I'm getting the information up and I'm trying to get help on this, and then trying to work with the staff to educate them has also been
yeah,
more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Because again, this information is confusing, but we are going to get a timeline up. We're going to put sort of local things we want to achieve.
yeah.
Just trying to describe it in this meeting has been helpful to kind of look at where we need to be, right? I think all of us are in a better state, including myself, on where things need to go when, right? And
Kim's
then
outline is really good.
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So we're following that. We're going to have the information up. We've already started to put together some of the narrative elements. So we're getting there.
Okay, programs, grants, and miscellaneous. Do we need to?
No, I just wanted to invite you all to the grant reception. We haven't, I think a lot of the trustees came to the one that was prior to
Hmm.
COVID. That was one of the last events we did before we had to shut down. And then this is the first year that it's going to be back. We're getting 3 grants that night. And just it's going to be, I think, a fun evening. I'm going to stay, so you can hang out with me if you want. And Chief Achilles was on the council and he's leaving. I don't know. I think he'll still be at that one. So that might be an opportunity to say goodbye if you ever had interactions with him and you want to wish him well on his new position out of
Okay,
state.
and that is the
15th.
15th at what time are we talking?
7 o'clock.
7 p.m. on the 15th. Sounds like a plan. Good. Month away. All right. How about the expense report? Do we have any questions about that?
A quick one.
Yes.
Why are we down by 11% on salaries?
Okay, good question. That's because the payroll that's going in next week is not in yet, because I have to report, like I've gotten better at updating all of the financials for the bills, because we do that every week, kind of on like clockwork, but there's a little bit of a lag on payroll because of I have to report on it in a month, and we don't have all the payroll data for that month. Does that make
It's a
sense?
reporting issue versus a
Correct. So
we're not
there's
understaffed or
so there's 2 weeks that are going to be from the 11th to the 24th that aren't there yet, because I'm doing payroll Saturday. So I have that number. And then there's also a week after that in January that won't be in until a February payroll. So it's always a little bit behind, Janet. That's a good
Okay.
catch though. And it's worth noting is that because I don't like to predict that the staff are all going to come in when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
We have to fluctuate the amount sometimes. That's why it's a little bit behind, and it usually is during an expense report.
Okay. Other questions? Nope. Okay. Moving right along. Shall we take up the minutes now?
Sure.
Okay. Anybody have any emendations or corrections on the minutes? All right. Do I have a motion to accept as written?
I motion to accept as written.
Okay. And a second?
Second.
All right. I'm just going to let everybody take up their own name. Landry, I.
Yes, Donnie, I.
Ekberg, aye.
Go ahead, Kim. Oh no, you're not voting. Maney, aye.
Oh, that's right. All right. So we passed
Well,
with
Kim's
with a majority.
abstaining, right? That's
Right.
Sorry, I'm muted.
that,
Yeah.
that Kim Reagan abstained, right? Because she wasn't present.
Yeah,
Is
and
the
that
thing-
one wasn't on Zoom.
Is the thing on the 15th, Ryan, at the
In
community
person.
house?
I thought it was at the library.
Is it at the library or the community house?
It's at the it was at the
Okay.
library.
All right,
Good, all
just
right,
putting it in my calendar so I get there.
yes.
Oh, the
Busy
cultural
season.
arts reception,
Yeah.
it's at the library.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the FY25 budget.
Oh,
Right?
that just
Yeah.
is there's no update is the update. The advisory meeting, because we did talk about this last time, but I believe the date the library's scheduled to go is the 27th. So if
Yeah.
anybody, I don't
It's
know where,
Saturday. It's a Saturday.
it's a Saturday. I don't know where on the schedule we're gonna be. I have to go in for that day because I
think I
wasn't
can tell you,
scheduled.
but I don't.
So if anybody wants to go, I'll let you know the time. I'll keep you guys posted once
Yeah.
they give me an idea.
Wait a minute, I think I've got it, but I don't know if it's the latest information. Hold on.
We were later in the afternoon that day, the day we did it before, and I know many of you came. And I always think it's very powerful when we are able as a group to show advisory and the select board that we care. Marguerite, I believe, has to be there anyway
Yeah,
in her other role.
I
So
think there's not going to be a lot of questions on that budget. The main library situation is $150,000, and that's a capital. That's on as a capital. Yeah, I don't have it, but I think we're later in the afternoon. But anyway, so if you have something else that you drastically would rather do on that day, I think that'd be okay.
yeah, there's no changes to the budget though, only that the forthcoming select board and advisory meeting is on January 27th, which is
Yeah.
a Saturday, and the
Okay.
library is supposed to present the budget.
Good, that should be on the website. All right, so Massachusetts Public Library Construction Program, did we already cover that?
Yeah, that was in the director's report. That was,
right.
unless there was anything I missed.
Yep. And Janet, do you want to update on the Community Center Exploration Committee again, or did we?
I think we
Cover
did it.
that.
Just the fact that we're coming to a close. Yay. Somebody else will have to pick up the threads at some future date, but yes.
Okay.
We're
Yeah,
meeting again on the 22nd, which is a Monday
It's
evening.
really just going over these kind of answers and the
Do the
presentation
report.
to the
Yeah.
And then
select board.
Jason will be presenting results to the select board on February 6th. So if you guys want to watch that or follow that, Janet and I will report on that next meeting too. So we'll update you if you don't want to go to any of those.
Good, Janet, thank you for serving on that. There
Yeah.
were so many flying things in the air on that. It
Mhm.
was amazing, and it continues to be, right? So here it is. It's a lot of ifs. All right, so let's move to 7, the library submission to the annual town report, which we all should have before us in three pages, which are very good. Ryan, you want to tell us about it, or Kim?
Well, it was me. I wrote
Ryan.
it.
Okay,
Yeah.
did Kim, it's Kim Data, a lot of it though, right?
It was Eris data. So Mariana updated a lot of those
Oh,
tables.
okay, all right.
I did the last one because I get that number from Brian
Okay.
Valentine for the financial report. He's the town's treasurer collector.
Good.
We did read it for accuracy. I did get some feedback. I had one of our newer part-time staff members read it, and she did confess she's never read the annual town report and didn't know the library had a section every year, which I think a lot of people don't, which is part of the reason I put it on the agenda. So because a lot of time and energy goes into updating this document, and I go through pictures all year and I try to find out some good ones. So I know they're tiny. They will be bigger in the actual report because Melanie is going to reformat this.
Nice.
I did get some feedback from Janet, maybe to include the new Gardens That Work Club. Our part-time staff member suggested the Cookbook Club, a mention there, because she's seen that club meet, and I think we had almost 20 people at the last meeting. So it's
Good.
definitely hit it's gone back to pre-COVID levels of attendance, and she noted that it looked like it was fun and that we should highlight that. I will say, I'm sorry, programs got omitted. We could do just 3 pages on the programs library does. I have to highlight and I try to feature new things in the report. You will see there's kind of a new section where we had our diversity statement last year, and that is kind of a summation of the things we did for the select board on new initiatives. Mariana also wrote the portion on teen programs because I thought so much work has gone into that in 2023. We really should have highlighted it. The previous year, we talked about summer reading pretty extensively. So the idea is to feature youth services, but maybe give, we gave Kim 1 year, now we're giving Mariana another year. So the idea is to kind of, we can always go back to summer reading in the future year too. I just can't fit everything. So that's my.
So children's program attendance went down to lower than it was before COVID, or is this all, no, it was 4,700, then it was 2,000, then it was 2,300, now it's 3,900 roughly.
Climb it back up.
Yeah, climbing back up. And also, it's like, if we had more space, we'd have twice as many programs running, but
Oh, there you go. There's part of the sales pitch right there.
yeah, I
I'll
think,
also,
yeah.
it is interesting because we do kind of have data, like we're now clear of the flood year in the annual report, which is nice. But because I used to have a little addendum for flood, this was the flood year, and now I have an addendum that these were the COVID years.
Yeah.
So it is interesting to see the statistics, though, running from a pre-COVID to an in COVID to post-COVID, right?
Yeah.
So even though COVID is still something we're dealing with, we've been able to fully open and run programs to the public. So you will see, I mean, things are not obviously exploding, but I'm happy with the numbers, to be honest. And it does show, I know we always want the numbers to go up, but I think kind of they're pretty consistent. I feel I'm happy with where things are.
Yeah, we don't want to make it look too fabulous though, Ryan. It's like, why do they need to be bigger? They're doing just fine the way they are. So anyway, I think that one of the things that's interesting to me about the library is that you do so very well with so little space. And people are used to that and they don't realize how cramped it can be, especially for the staff. But anyway, I'll get off that hobby horse. All right, annual town meeting 2024. I assume we're all going to try to attend. And are you going to do a presentation before the meeting, Ryan, or what's happening with that?
Sorry, say that again.
Are you going to do a presentation before the meeting? Like the 5 minute?
I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you want me to do?
Well, you're going to have to get up and speak about the 150,000.
Would be available for questions, I guess. Jason will make that presentation, won't he?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's going to be a separate warrant article, Janet, so I might do it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is actually,
Or
yeah.
one of you if you want, but
I
probably.
think you're the person that is you're the person who knows all the information far more than I do. Janet, you're on advisory, so
I'm not gonna be there.
yeah. Okay, then that
After
solves that
work.
problem. Janet will not be speaking, right?
I would say that I'll probably, I don't know if it's going to be a presentation. I would give background information. I have to get approved to be there and then also to be put on a speakers list because I'm not a resident. It's more of I have to be called on
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
proactively, which is, as a talker, it's always hard for me. But
Okay, so here's
So-
my question. Do we need a single sheet of paper that contains things like Kim was asking about with the timeline, the amounts, in other words, basically just a skeleton schedule of how this works before we ask for the 150,000.
So I
It's a
think it's an
handout.
exercise
Yeah,
because we've done
handout.
this in previous years. Sorry,
Yep.
and I don't mean to cut anybody off, but I think we should look at doing both a handout
Yep.
and a presentation.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, worst case, you can cut the presentation really short, but if the 150 fails at town meeting because there isn't enough information about it given to the people there, then we would say, oh, too bad, we should have done that. So that's what I would recommend.
Oh, that's
Laying some groundwork. It's very hard to educate people at town meeting about a financial situation as complicated as this one is. So handouts are good. Okay, any other comment about town meeting?
No, but I was just trying to Google the date, just out of curiosity, and Southborough in the UK has their town meeting on April 23rd, in case anybody cares.
We have a sister city. I wonder what it looks like. I'm
I was
sure
like,
it's lovely.
what? This doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. We were stuck with March. Okay, so yeah, we'll be the 23rd. Any public comment? Our attendee, I guess that's Sam, right?
Thank you for coming, Sam, as always.
Yeah,
We
truly.
appreciate you.
Truly, yeah. All right, so if there any other business that shall come before the board?
I have a couple things. I can
Okay.
report more on this or talk to any of you one-on-one. There were things that I wasn't able to put in the director's report that happened this week. We had a power outage, I think on either Sunday or Monday, and it just knocked out an internet machine downstairs. Hassan has fixed that already. It also affected the new security cameras, which I think we've also mitigated some of that. And then also the outdoor lights in the parking lot, which has become a more complicated issue. So we are working on all of that with the respective parties. There were some complaints about the icing on the sidewalks and the parking lot. So if you've been to the library, you know what I'm talking about. I did circle back with facilities and DPW. I will say everybody on the town side is doing their best. It was really hard because things were melting and then refreezing. So
Yeah.
that was, I think, an issue. I mean, ice has been a serious issue everywhere, right, over the past
Yeah.
couple days. So I just want to say, I want to make note of that.
Half of it is a
because
solid ice cream.
yeah, patrons were upset
it's
when the
bad.
library opened, and I did speak with them and I did address their concerns as best I could. And then, I was on the phone and sending emails as quickly as possible. So, when things like this happen, things like the construction stuff have to go on the back burner. So it's, I'm trying to get everything done, but that it really was all of Wednesday. I'll tell you that.
Was
So-
that ice on the pavement that needed a truck to come through?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So they sent one. And then a bit of good news, since it has been a lot today. I did apply with the Massachusetts Library System for a scholarship to attend the Public Library Association conference in Columbus, Ohio in April. And I am one of the 50 recipients of that money. So I'm making plans to go. It's only a 3-day conference, so it's not going to take me away for too long. And it's post-town meeting. So all of that is good, right? We'll be clear of all of that. But I am hoping to expand my contacts. I will be talking to vendors that do construction work because I'll be picking their brain. So it is a working trip. But I just wanted to mention that I sometimes don't tell you when I apply for things and I get awards like this, but I was pretty happy that MLS is letting me go. And
Congrats, that's great.
Yeah. So that's it for me.
Should we
Okay,
schedule the next meeting?
yes, all right. I think that we are gonna, so can Jane make 5 o'clock?
I don't know. I can get back to you on that. Janet, I have to ask you about the book club. Do you guys do your book club on Thursdays at all?
Oh, no, don't worry about that.
Okay.
Doesn't start till 7, wine drinking time.
Is it on Thursday though? A Thursday night?
It's random.
Okay.
This month it's actually Saturday night because it's our annual couples group.
Okay. So what I can tell you is that based on the feedback I've gotten from everybody, is that Monday nights and Thursday nights work the best for everybody. So
Okay.
I do know that Jane told me she couldn't attend tonight. And then I did work with you guys to schedule the meeting anyway. And that I can understand that that's frustrating for any board member to be scheduled out of a meeting. So I don't want that to happen again. So let me talk to Jane, if that's okay, Marguerite, and I will circle back with the rest of you on
Okay.
available dates in February. And we're looking really, I think February has a vacation week, the third week. So I'd
Mhm.
like to set the meeting on the second week, if that's okay. So either the Monday or the Thursday night are probably going to be our projected dates.
Monday the 19th is President's Day.
Then the Thursday night.
Vacation week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the week before that, the week of the
Yeah.
12th, right?
I think
Right.
the holiday, Marguerite, falls on the vacation week. So we'd
Right.
be looking at either the 12th or the 15th. Well, we
Okay,
can't do the 15th.
Not the
because of
15th.
Cultural arts, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can't make that week.
Okay.
At
So
all?
can you make the week of the 19th?
Yes, but
It's
it's a full vacation week.
though, Marguerite.
All right.
Do we
Well,
want to look, how about this? Do we
We're
want to look at
zooming.
either?
We're zooming though. Can we zoom?
I'm gonna have just arrived in Florida and my daughter and baby and granddaughter and stuff are gonna
We
be
liked
there.
it so much when you had the Mai Tai last year.
Could we look at, what about the last week of February? Does
All
anybody
right.
have a
Yeah, well, I
conflict?
don't have to be there at every meeting either, so if it's
No,
good
she
for
could
everybody
actually
else.
take a real vacation from
Yeah.
the
The
library.
week after is fine for me.
The
Talking about
20,
the
the week of
29th?
the
Yeah,
26th. So
29th.
we'd look at the 26th or the 29th. If my goal would be to do the 29th, David, if that worked for
Yeah.
everybody. And
And
then you can't do the 29th? Could you
No.
do potentially the 26th?
I can
Um,
do the 29th.
I can
Kim,
do the 26th. I can do the 26th, not the 29th.
okay.
But
I
you
can
guys,
do either.
Which one, David? Which one can you not do? Can anybody not do the 26th?
Can you do the 26th, David?
Yes. Yes, yes.
Okay.
I said I
Okay,
could
so-
do either.
Oh, okay. Okay, so 26 sounds good. What do you think?
We'll just check with Jane. And if it's
Okay.
bad for Jane, I'm gonna get back to the rest of you.
All right.
Okay.
And we're looking at 5 o'clock or later? We don't know.
I like 5.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I would just be a little late if it was on the 26th.
So 5:30 maybe?
I could get on by 5:30.
You
we
want to
could
do?
do 6. I like 6 too.
All right.
We'll check with Jane.
Some people have meals they need to prepare for families.
So 6 would be better for me because if I
Okay.
leave the library, I'd get home by 6.
Okay.
So
So potentially the 26th of February, which is a Monday at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
All right, good.
tentative.
Excellent.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you all.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
It's right with you.
Okay. All right, all those in favor, Landry,
Second
I
Maney, aye.
is Donnie, I.
Okay, I think we've all voted aye. The motion to adjourn passes unanimously. Okay, good night, everybody,
everybody.
and thank you, and I'll see you soon.
Again, I apologize for being late. I have an excuse, but you don't want to hear it. So
No worries.
thank
I
you for
trust you.
indulging me.
Please, I was late too, so there you go.